Hey guys, welcome to Jay's Helper. In this video, I'm going to help you to get the basic understanding on JavaScript data types. And trust me guys, this video is going to be really interesting. So don't skip the video or don't fast forward it. Sit tight. I will try my level best to explain the basic concepts of JavaScript data types. So by end of the video, you might be having the whole knowledge how JavaScript data types used to work with the coercion part of the data types as well. So let's go into the video. In general, JavaScript have two different data types. One is primitive, another one is composite. If it is new or sounds a little weird, I'll try to give an example. Say if you're a teacher in a school and you have 10 students in a class, you know them by their name, but you don't know them what community they belongs to. So similar to that, you might work in different JavaScript data types. You know them by their name, like string, number, boolean, big int, undefined, null, symbol. So these are nothing but primitive data types. And rest is nothing but non-primitive. They are array, object, and regular expression. So why there is a difference between primitive data type and non-primitive data type? So primitive data types are immutable and non-primitive data types are immutable. So what exactly it means? So primitive data types, you cannot mutate the value. Once the value is assigned, you cannot change it. You can reassign it, but you cannot change the value. But non-primitive data types, you can change the value at any given time. To put it in an example, I would say where my string equal to hi, and if I console.log my string, let me see whether that actually hi prints here. Okay, and if I change my string dot to uppercase, so you expect to see hi get printed on an uppercase. When I run this, you still see hi here. So what exactly happening here is my string calls this function passing the high value to it, but it is not mutating the value here. It is not changing the value of my string. So if you want to get this, you need to reassign the value here, or you want to create a new value, then you can see the value got changed here. Why? That's how the primitive data types used to work. They cannot mutate the value. You can reassign the value, but they cannot mutate the value. How it works in the sense, when you create a new data type, like a string or a number, it creates a memory and puts this value into the direct memory. So it is not keeping any reference. When you hit the variable, you get the value. Whereas in non-primitive data types, it is actually holding as a reference. It doesn't store the value in the memory, rather it keeps the reference in the memory. So that's the reason when you check the condition like if str equal to, if one string is equal to another string, it's always true. But if one object, if you compare with another object, it's always false. So here it tries to check the memory. So memory is holding the value here. So each memory value is same. So here only the reference is stored in the memory and the object value is in different place. So that's the reason it's always false. You cannot conditionally check an object or an array. It's always false. No matter if you give 2 equal or 3 equal to, it is always false. You cannot check the non-primitive data types here. Let me clear this. To get a more understanding, I give another one where item equal to 10 and have a function update item takes number as an argument and return number plus 10. To make it more promising, I have another function update again which take item as an argument and return item plus 10. So if I call update item and pass item as an argument and call update again, pass item again, if I console.log item, so what exactly you think you can see here? I have an item which is nothing but 10. I call the function update item, which again gets the value and then update the value plus 10, returns the value. Again I'm calling update again, that gets the item again and update item plus 10 again. So if the function properly works, I would expect to see 10, 10 plus 10, 20, and 20 plus 10, 30. So if I run this, you would see, okay, update. Let me clear this. If I run this, you would see only 10 here. So it's a bit surprised. You are supposed to see something more than that, 10, 20 or something different. In contrast, you see only 10 here because you actually getting the value. You are not changing the value. You're not mutating the value. So to do that, you have to mutate the value. So you can reassign, update and update. Now, if you run this, you will see 30 here. In general, the primitive data types can only be reassigned and you cannot mutate the existing value. But whereas in non-primitive data types, you can always mutate the value. So that's the reason in ES6, all primitive data types can be used with let keyword. On non-primitive data types, you can use with const keyword. So if you want to declare something with a string, number, or boolean, you can use let. If you want to use non-primitives like array, object, regular expression, you can use constant. Because constant, once you declare a constant, you cannot mutate the value. But once you declare constant using array or object, you can always mutate the value. So constant object equal to nothing, then I can simply say object.a equal to 2, and if I console.log, so if you see the object, you have the latest value a2. For all non-primitive data types, you can use const as a keyword. For primitive data types, you can use only let as a keyword because this keeps the value in the memory, whereas this keeps the reference in the memory. So reference, it doesn't hold any value, whereas this one holds only the value in the memory. Alright, so let's see what is coercion is. So coercion is nothing but how JavaScript handle these two data types with other operators. If you are a JavaScript developer and if you've been into interviews, interviewers might ask questions like what if you concatenate an object and a string or object and an array. So they try to get an explanation from you. If you're not aware of that, I'm sure by end of this video you might be having some knowledge on it. Let's go one by one. So let's get some basic principles right. True and true is always true, right? False and true is always false, and false or true is always true, and false or false, it always false. All right, let's go to the examples now. If I have a primitive string 1, 2, 3, and then if I do a logical operation and operation with another 1, 2, 3, you see 1, 2, 3. So you see 1, 2, 3 here. So how actually works behind the scenes or under the hood is it converts anything, any data type into a boolean, and then again it converts the data type into boolean and returns the last boolean value here. So if this is this 1 and this is 2, it returns the last boolean true value here. Last boolean true value. So in contrast, if I have boolean 0, 1 and or boolean 0, 2, it returns first boolean value here. This one is already true and the next condition is OR condition, so I don't have to worry about the next condition whether it is true or false, so I can always return true here. And here this is true and then I have to make sure the next one is also true, so that's the reason it is returning the next true here. In that case, if I have 1, 2, 3 and another 1, 2, 3, it returns the last true value. If I have another string and number, it returns me the number. But if I have a string and if I have null value, it gives me null value because null value is nothing but false. So if any false value happen, it returns the false value here. On contrast, if I have string and if I have null value, I get the string because this is true here. So null is false, and same for undefined as well. This is nothing but false. So this is false here. So if I do a false and false, So it returns undefined because false, this is already false. I no need to go another step. So it is returning undefined here. If I do the same way around, so false, still it waits for the next condition, and again this is false. That's the reason it is returning the undefined here. So this is what exactly happening for the primitive data types. So what exactly happened with the non-primitive data types? If I have an array and an object, it gives me an object. So this is true and this is also true. So what exactly happened here is when there is a non-primitive value, it tries to call two methods. One is value of, another one is toString. So when you try to compare a non-primitive object, it checks the value of. So value of returns either a primitive or a non-primitive data type. So most of the time it returns what exactly you have in the data type. If it is say where array equal to empty array, and if I say value of, it gives me an empty array, or where object equal to a1 and gives a value of, you see, a1. So always it tries to return what exactly the object is. And when you try to convert to a string, it gives me object. If you try to convert this object, you always see object. Why you have this function here? Because object always tries to convert as object when you call this toString method. Then why you need this? There is a reason for it. When you try to create a data object, if you see .toString, it gives me the date string. Because when I see the value of, it will not try to give me any data object. Rather, it returns a primitive data type. So that's the reason object still has this reference toString. So what in case if I try to convert empty array to toString? It just returns an empty string. All right. Okay. And there is a caveat. You cannot have an object with a logical operator like this because it always throws up an error. No matter which browser you're using, object, you cannot do any operation next to the object. No matter if you're doing an OR operation also, you still see the error. But rather, you can assign a value to a variable and then you can do like this. So as I said before, object always returns a true and an array is again true. So true and true always return the last true, which is nothing but an empty array. All right. Now there is an interesting part. What exactly happened when I try to concatenate? It gives me object. If I do the other way around, it gives me 0. Why we have a 0 here? That's because when I just run this empty array, it gives me 0, or when you just try to run with an empty string, it gives a 0 because array.toString gives me an empty string. Whenever you try to do a logical operator with an empty string, it gives me a 0. That's the reason array or object plus an array gives a 0, whereas object plus object gives me an object because every time when you convert it, it goes to this cycle value of and toString, where it gives toString is object. All right. Okay, hopefully you might be having some idea on what primitive and non-primitive data types and how exactly it works on Coercion. If you like this video, please give a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Or if you have any questions or any comment, please leave a comment below. I will get back to you. Thank you for watching.